Thank you so much for the invitation. And in this first part, I would like to share with you a little bit experience and information about Poland and about our Polish perspectives. And about our open science journey or open science road, which is, as I mentioned a few times, is not always very easy. To start, I think yesterday I had a great, as always, conversation, and I also talked a little bit about rivalry. I come from Poland, and on one border we have Germans, the south we have Slovakia and Czech Republic, then we have Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia. And we are in the strategic place, and we have very much common history from the 80s. I think we have a lot of similarities. But on the other hand, we always had Germans as our neighbors. And it's really true when I said that we always looked at them and what they developed, what is going on, not only in the research environment, but we also checked what kind of involvement and implementation in the field of the researchers. Of the research environment they established. And I think the first discussions about science and how the science can be made more open happened in the beginning of the 2000s, and it was raised by the librarians because the librarians they have a very much good connection and networks with other libraries in Europe, especially about publishing, about publications, about databases, and so on. And all those first talks, networks, conferences push. Which were pushed by librarians, they resulted in the first main, I think, milestone for Poland in 2015, which were the Ministry of Science and Higher Education recommendation for the development of open access to publication and research results in Poland. And in that time, in 2015, and it wasn't a strong policy because we need to realize that the policy is a very strong word. So it's not a policy, it was the recommendations, the regulations, the recommendations, the document adopted by and supported by our Ministry of Science and Higher Education. And in that document, in this document, for example, the ministry encouraged universities to build their own institutional repositories for publications. They mention institutional repositories for data. And they put the strong focus on open science publications. And that was the 2015. And what's happened then in Poland, many institutional repositories for open access publications appeared. And some of the universities, included my university, we started to think about more broadly that if we have the open access repository, then maybe we need to have the research data repository as well. One thing in 2015, because I will mention at the end what was difference. In 2015, the ministry in that document, they didn't even put any information about additional support. No, not funding, not special funding from the ministry, not special recommendation for the establishing a structure of supporting at the university, how to open the publication, how to open the data. No, that's the, let's say, the recommendations, and the universities, they have to they have to start the job by themselves. Then in 2018, Poland became a mandatory organization of the European Open Science Cloud. Our mandatory organization, and it's still until now, it's the National Science Center. The National Science Center Poland, that's the main founding agency, research agency in Poland, and it became the mandatory organization for the whole Poland. It is worth to mention that every country, they can have only one mandated organization. And in Bulgaria case, as far as I remember, the NASIC is the main mandate organizations. The other institutions, the other universities, the other, associations, structures, and so on, they can be the members of the EOSC association. Do you have any other members of the EOSC? Or just one, the mandate organization? Only one. Okay. So this is the mandate organization, but other universities, for example, Sofia universities, they can apply to be a member of the EOSC. It's not cheap, as I say, because the fee is paid yearly, and it costs 10,000 euro to be a member, or you can be an observer without the voting mandate, and it's, let's say, a little bit cheaper, 2,500 euros. And as far as I remember, those fees, they haven't changed for years. It doesn't matter if you are coming from the small universities or very big university. You always, for the members, you always need to pay 10,000 euro, and for the observers, 2,500. About EOSC, we will have a session this afternoon. However, it is worth to mention that in 2018, Poland started to be a part of the European Open Science Cloud, because this step could us reflect and apply for the more broader grants, and to be more in the structure and networks of the EOSC infrastructure. data infrastructure. Then the very big step, I think, for me and for my colleague in all the libraries and also for the researcher, it was 2019. And then, and I know that we will be talking about data management plans today, probably more. However, why this was one of the most important, I think maybe not even most important, I think this one is the most important step for Poland, which prepare researchers and other institutions to talk about sharing data. In 2019, the National Science Center introduced a mandatory data management plan requirements for all the research projects. It was 2019. Do you have the National Funding Agency in Bulgaria? Do you apply for the scientific grants there? And do you have any requirements about data or about publications when you're applying for grants?
Publications for sure.
Publications, but all the publications, they need to be in open access, published or not? No.
Not all, but preferably.
From the last year, our National Science Center changed a little bit this approach, because they said that over 10 years we have this open access, and now they are more flexible, unfortunately more flexible. However, they focus more on sharing the data. So for them, the first thing is sharing the data in the open way, and then publication. So sometimes you can see that the publication is closed, but the data is open. So the shift in Poland, it's changed also a little bit. However, in that stage, all the publications from the National Science Center, they had to be published in the open access. And from 2019, that was very big step. All the grants, they need to have a data management plan. And in the instruction of this data management plan was stated that if the researcher will have any problems with writing data management plan, they should go to the library and ask data stewards there. And in 2019, it was just one library with maybe 2 data stewards. It was my library with these 2 data stewards, because we used to have a project about data and data stewards, and we were in Research Data Alliance organizations. And the whole Poland, they didn't really have any experience about data stewards and sharing research data. But the lady, actually my colleague, she who was responsible for introduction the data management plan for the National Science Center Poland. She used to live in United States, and she came from the United States, and then also she worked in the Netherlands, and she came to Poland, and she just immediately issued this regulation. She forced the director of National Science Center that this is the international case to have a data management plan, and she didn't really check that in Poland we don't have such a structure for sharing data, for data stewardship, and so on. So what's happened then? I contacted with her and we started to cooperate with the National Science Center Poland. We organized something like you organize now, trainings for the libraries, trainings for the project offices. It took us, I think, 2 years. I trained, I don't know how many librarians and how many research and project offices and so on, because nobody that time used the word data steward. Still, we will have problem with that. And we very, very slowly started to introduce that concept at our university. But this is why I said it was the key drivers, because we got something which was mandatory. All the researchers, they had to do this. And unfortunately, this is, you know, the carrots and stick. This was the stick. However, this stick make us to be, you know, to evolving, to developing a lot of things. And I'm not sure, because we are in the ministry now here, I don't want to be. I would like to be, how to say, polite and proper, but this is some kind of political decision to push for that stick, and I'm not really sure what kind of mandates you have as the.
So the stick arrived.
Stick arrived. Okay, that's great. So if you have a stick, then you can start to think about carrots. Yeah, so and it was the painful process at the beginning, I must say. And I don't know, some people they like changes, some people they don't like. However, it happens already. So then in 2021 we adopted, I'm just checking the time because I know that the lunch is at 12. So in 2021 what it was also important for Poland, that the Act on Open Data and the Reuse of Public Sector Information was adopted, and it implemented the European legal framework for sharing resources and defined research data. This is quite important because probably you had to adopt this act, yes? Because you are the part of the European Union. So this act actually led our infrastructures to also maybe not led, but our infrastructures, our computing centers, not only the universities, they started to apply more for the infra grants, for the developing the infrastructure from the Horizon Europe. So this working from the European level started to be in Poland more visible in 2021. And then it was also reflected in 2022 when the government approved the state science policy, which integrated open science and citizen science into the main priorities of the Polish higher education system. And that was also the key for us. Again, it was, state science policy, it was much stronger than those recommendations in 2015. So nobody, for example, nobody was surprised when we are talking about building another open science infrastructure. It was like the obvious. The problem is the money, of course. if the universities don't have a grant to build the infrastructure, they started to invest money, for example, in building the team, however, using the national infrastructure for sharing the data. Because in the same time, it's probably 2019, 2020, we reshaped our national data repository. So we have now at the moment 2 separate national repository in Poland. We don't really have a quite big platform as you have this Bulgarian open science platform. I remember correctly the name. We have also some kind of solution for Polish publications. However, because we have a lot of institutional repository, our publication platform is more like an archive or part of the CRIS system. But on the other hand, we started to build the national data repository, probably like similar to your concept, and all the universities which don't have money or don't have their own infrastructure, then can use national data repository to set up to share the data. And then between 2022, 2020, and so on, we had elections. So our government completely changed. And you know probably the situation. The last 8 or more years we had in Poland, let's say, more right-wing government, and now it's not always true, but that's the simplify from me. We changed to more central and sometimes even left-wing government. So this is our. It was our new reality, and the previous government, they started to work on the policy or on the new recommendation on open access policy. But when we had the new government, they said that everything what they worked, it's of course a trash, and they started to do the job again. And finally, in July 2025, so last year, the Minister of Science approved the key document. Again, not a strong policy as in 2022. It's still a recommendation, but the document, we called it Open Access Policy for Research Data Funded from Public Funds, somehow, the translation. And this document, it sets the roadmap and standards for sharing and managing data across the whole research sector. And that was also very much important thing, because it showed the changes from the thinking. So it's not more focus on open access to publications, for institutional repositories, and copyright and licensing. Why? Because the government, the ministry, they said that we already had it. Yes, so we don't really need to focus on the. It's not always true, actually. However, many of the universities, many of the institutions, they already established the programs, established the repository, established the policy on open access. So that step is already done. And then what we are focusing now in this document is that we are focusing on research data, not only about sharing this research data in the open way, but to manage the whole research data, also this sensitive data, which cannot be shared in the repositories. We focus on the FAIR principles there, so it's a strong focus on building the FAIR infrastructure. Yes, because to making data fair is one of the most important steps, and the first steps is sharing this data in the fair infrastructure. Then, surprisingly, however, maybe it's also, I think, some kind of political shift and political decision. The EOSC alignment was very strongly mentioned in the document. So from the level of the ministry, even if our Ministry of Science and Higher Education, I'm not really sure if he exactly knows what EOSC means. However, he has, let's say, other vice ministers and so on. So in the document, they mention EOSC very clearly a few times. And also it was the focus on long-term preservation. So for the first time, they don't even, like in 2015, they used the word deposit sharing, but nobody cares about curation of the data of the publications. They said infrastructure, institutional repository for publications, so probably it will be forever, yes? But nobody get us funding forever, yes? Sometimes the funding they finish when the project is finished. However, in that document, first time the long-term preservation it was managed. So what they recognized, because they also focus on the research data management practices. And what they reflected in the document, in the recommendations together, as I mentioned, EOSC, FAIR principles. I think in few points they also started to introduce the CARE principles, because at the moment at the European level we don't even talked about FAIR data. We talked about FAIR and CARE data. Yesterday I had this quick presentation at the doctoral national doctoral summer school, and I knew that PhD students they had introduction of the FAIR data. However, the CARE data was missing. Yes. So, and anybody of you, do you know what about CARE data? What's the CARE principles?
I think you mentioned last time that the CARE principles were about ethical usage of data.
Yeah, generalized, yes. And it's also about responsible science, and with a strong focus on the ethical aspects. What they also reflected, and maybe we will have a time later, is the Horizon Europe requirements. Because now we are almost ending the the Horizon Europe projects, and the new framework, the 10th framework is coming, yes, very soon. And in the I mean, we don't have the official regulation because FP10 it's still under discussion and it's still under development. However, again, the shift from open access to publication to opening research data is very strongly visible in the new requirements for the new Horizon. So it reflects again in the recommendation and the policy. Then they took into account the National Science Center and those recommendations and their policies about data management plans, and growing expectations regarding reproducibility and transparency of the research. And here, I don't know, do you have these situations about paper mills in Bulgaria? Paper mills, do you know the paper mills? Yes, that some agencies publishing articles on behalf of the researchers, and then another researchers, they just put their names there and so on. We have a few, and then the articles, they are retracted and so on. Unfortunately, we had a few very big cases. Maybe I will check during the break. I will give you a link to that blog because it's quite interesting from the publishing perspective. How those paper mills, how they are working, and they are still existing, and they are very good. They have very good money, and researchers. The researchers. I don't know. They are sometimes using those agency to writing their articles. So in that document, our government also, they started to reflect on the transparency of the research, and also it was influenced by the new journals policies. Maybe I will ask you, because you are from the publishing house. Because at the moment I don't know how it's many journals and many big publishers as Elsevier, Taylor and Francis and so on. When you publish the article, you need to provide data availability statement. Have you heard about that? Yes. So maybe that's the tip for you, because you are dealing with the journals, that this is the part of the journals policy. You can have access to the abstract, but the main underlying data, yes, is datasets. The datasets is the underlying data for the articles. So many publishers at the moment, many journals, they required the data availability statement. I have a presentation about that in English. Just remind me. I will send you. That during the break. And those big publishers, probably you have this agreement with Elsevier and Springer, Clarivate, exactly. So Poland as well, we put a lot of money to that, unfortunately, to those agreements. And those journals, they started to introducing the new policies regarding the data. and the data statements. You have different levels of the data statements. You can put the data as in open way, upon request, and so on, and so on. And this journals policy, they also reflected in this document that the researchers, they need the infrastructure to share their data. So from data as byproduct of research, we come to the data as a strategic research asset. And before we are going, we will go for a break. I will give you a quick summary how we started to support or implemented these recommendations from the ministry. And as I said before, not everything works, and not everything is working for us. And we need to have a time to adopt those recommendations, and also we need to have time to implement these changes and practices. So what we have at the moment in Poland, many of the universities, they changing. For example, my university is also in the middle of change. We are changing open access policy at the university to open science policy. Maybe this is only one word to change. However, the spectrum of the changes reflected many things. Yes, as I said in the beginning, we are not talking about single publications, single data. We started to think about research output as a whole. That's the reason. It's a very small step. However, it's very significant. So we started from changing the names open access policy to open science policy. Some universities, they are going more forward, and they also produce their research data policies. In my case, at my university, we are focused on open science policy, because research data policy is implemented in our research data repository. So we don't really want to repeat it a few things. We are strongly now also working on the repository regulations. And in this repository regulations, we try to reflect the fair implementation strategy, but also regulation for the long-term preservation. Then we are focused on the typical policy elements, covering especially research data policies or open science policies, because open access policies we already had. We are focused on data ownerships, data responsibilities for the data, storage and preservations, sharing and reuse, and sensitive data management. And the sensitive data management, that's the, separate part of the policies, because it needs to be treated a little, maybe not even a little bit, but in different way. Then we are focused on the building institutional support structures. Why? Because what our institutions learned, and my institutions as well, that the policies alone are not enough. even if we had a very great and strong policy from the ministry, if we don't have people to implement it, support it, track it, and so on, it's nothing. Yes, it will be the policy who nobody cares. Maybe director issue the regulations and so on, but you really need people to manage. And what we learned, and what is also surprisingly reflected in the documents, we knew that we need to establish maybe not open science competency centers. However, we called open science, my office is called Open Science Competence Center. However, many other universities, they started to build some kind of structures inside the library, and they called, I don't know, scholarly communication office or so on. However, this is the place where meet people. I heard now the name research managers. Have you heard the term research managers from the IARMA, I think, association? Research managers, they are people who support researchers in different kind of activities regarding not maybe the conducting the research, however, let's say this administrative job, the data management plan, applying for the projects, for the grants, and so on. We started also to build the structure for data stewards, repositories, different training programs, DMP data management plan consultations, and very slowly, because this is a problematic issue, legal support. We do not have proper legal support because, how to say, our lawyers, they always said it depends. It depends on that. It depends. It's very, we don't really have the specialists who are only specialized in the data, sharing data, publishing. They are specialized in the copyrights, but many of the issues, many of the regulations, they are adopted to the publications. And I agree with the lawyers that with data it depends. Exactly, it depends on several requirements, on several things. However, we are still, I think, in the road of probably finding some kind of specialization during the legal study as well, which will be connected to share the data. And example of the Gdansk University of Technology, what we had in the support context, we have this Open Science Competence Center. We can talk about that later. We have Bridge of Data repository. We have a program for data stewards. So we trained data stewards, and we have mandatory doctoral training for free ECTS points for first year PhD students. It's every year, and it's happened. It's about open science practices, and we cover mainly information skills, open access, and the beginning of research data management. So what it works for us, we start with practical services. So in the same time when we started to build our research data repositories, at the same moment we started to build the team. And we started to build the trust before even imposing these requirements. So we have a team of the data stewards and let's say data stewards or open science specialists. Even before we put the first data set in the repository. We started to talk about research data before. Then we try to combine a policy with training. So, for example, if we have a blog for the researchers, we were talking about national science policy, and in the same time we provided training on DMP. So we involved researchers quite early. However, it was the tricky part, and I would like to be completely honest with you that at the beginning we had a project for developing this research data repositories, and we hired researchers to the focus groups. We started on working on the metadata schema for our repository, and but when the project finished, they were still together. We are still with us. So I think it worked very well. But the first incentives probably it was this, let's say, scholarships. And what else? We tried not to invent the wheel again and again, and we used the existing international standards quite often, because we had in mind that we want to be part of the, for example, EOSC, and for the more international organizations and network. So we had to adapt their requirements to our Polish perspective, but also we need to implement it some kind of their solutions. What does not work? Policy without support, it didn't work at all. And one size fits all solutions. It's not it's not a good thing. We are technical university, one of the leading in Poland, and we applied for grants and we got these grants. So we could invest those money from the grants in the infrastructure. If you are from the smallest university, sometimes you don't have the success rate in the applying for grants. Then it's inefficient to follow our path. You need to find, for example, your path and use, for example, national infrastructure. And also, what does it not work very well when we treating research data management as only a technical issue. Because it's not only the technical issue. You can prepare the metadata data in very simple and easy way. However, that layer which we are talking about ethical, when we are talking about quality, it's not the technical issue. So we had to implement it and combine the technical with the social, let's say, issue together. So in the world of data management plan, and it's not only the Polish experience, it's also many other not only European country, but the idea of submitting a data management plan is now started to be more common internationally. But in Europe, we have the most, let's say, common data management planning activities. They are most common when you are applying for grants, especially for the Horizon Europe grants. Then different national funding agency, they can also implement it, some kind of templates. As I mentioned, in Poland, it's happened from 2019. And also institutional support programs. For example, our internal grants in Poland. Some institutions, they also implemented initial data management planning. More examples is some of the Germans and UK universities, they introduce data management plan I mentioned yesterday in the PhD schools. Yes, so all the PhD students on their first year, they need to prepare the small initial data management plan regarding their topic, and then they can check it, let's say, in the moment of defense PhD, what's happened with their data. In Poland, at my institution, data management plan is not obligatory. However, we are starting at the first year during this course. We start to write this data management plan. And why we are also talking about data management plan, because in the EOSC environment, we have working groups or task forces which are they used to be involving in the data management planning activities, and now at the moment it's step ahead, because we are implemented machine actionable data management plans. We implemented the tools and we implemented the approach to make data management plans machine actionable. So you can see that this is the, this is the time to sit and to do something with the data management planning, because some other countries, they are more ahead than, for example, us in Poland as well. And machine actionable data management tools, they are recently was developed by Austria, DAMAT. I will show you that example in our last conversation, because we will have a scientific use cases about that. But we have more developed by France, by Czech Republic, of course Germans, and so on. So in that circle. The main reason and the main point in the discussion is about funder requirements, institutional policies, and also research support, how they can work together to improve the research data management practices. So what's the most effective mechanism, tools for the data management plan? The first one is DMP templates. And I know that you don't have the template prepared by, I don't know, by ministry. However, this is one of the most common templates used in Europe, and maybe because as far as my conversation went this morning, maybe you will have some kind of inspiration to do your national temple on the science Europe. The problem with the data management plan without the templates is that even if you have instruction about data management plan, researchers, they don't really know what to write about. Yes? It's happened many times in the Horizon projects, because in the Horizon projects at the moment, on the initial phase, when you're applying for Horizon project grants, you don't have to use the template. I mean, you can't even use the template. You provide something like they called open science overview or open science practices. And if you're applying for grant, and now the regulations for the, lump sum or budget-based grants from Horizon, it's something like 30 pages together. So the 30 pages together for the all sections of the grants, sometimes it's not enough. So you shorter the different section. And one of the first section to make a shorter is open science practices or data practices. So in the initial phase, when you're applying for Horizon, you just prepare the overview without any structure. You just need to put some information about publications, data, repository, and so on. Frankly speaking, in 5 sentences or 6 sentences, yes? But the problem started when you got the grant. When you got the Horizon grant, and now maybe do you know where is my second presentation, Teddy? I come back to this template in 1 minute.
In the homework.
Okay. But I think it might be easier for you if I show you the template for Horizon and the requirements.
The last one.
Yeah. Okay. So the proposal submission, as I said, this is the section open science practices, I think the most popular. And you will put everything together in 5-6 sentences. Then, if you are successful, you got the grant agreement, and then after 6 months, you send the first data management plan according to the template. And this template is more based as template from the science Europe. Not everything are the same. However, the main section of the data management plan needs to be covered. And those main section of the data management plan to cover is usually the same in all the templates. So the first section is mostly about data description. So, and in that section, you need to reflect what data will be created. Maybe you will be using the existing data. Maybe any data you need to buy from the, commercial databases and so on. Then what kind of formats you will be using and what expected volume would be, yes? Stina, she showed you the slide that the most, I think, volume of the data produced by your researchers is up to 100 giga. Yes? Yes. So it's good because many of the repositories, institutional repositories, they will accept that amount of data. No? Yes, they accept that kind of amount of data. The problem will start if you produce more than 500 giga, more than 1 terabyte data. Then you need to think about also the selection process. The second segment of the data management plans is somehow about documentation and the metadata. Why this is important? Because what makes the metadata? Metadata makes the data findable and understandable by humans and by machines. So you need to know how to describe your data. Also from the points of the researchers and their popularity, it also enables proper citations of the data sets. I mentioned yesterday, for example, during the school, that many institutional repositories, they build, they mark, they brand the recognition of the researchers also to try to index data repository in the proper databases. And for the researchers at the moment, still one of the most recognizable databases is Web of Science. Yes, and Web of Science, they have a special index for data. It's called Data Citation Index, and all the data sets, for example, from our repositories, they are also indexed in Data Citation Index in Web of Science. It's not the popularizing data like the data, but it's something like incentive for the researcher to publish their data sets to the repository, because they can track also the citations of the data set according to the Web of Science records. And metadata standards, they are a lot of standards, and if you are from the disciplines, you are using probably one of your disciplinary standards. However, many researchers, they do not have their disciplinary standards, and they need to rely on the more general standards. So it's good that your institutional or national repository follow the main requirements for, I don't know, data site standard or Dublin Core. Then the third section of the data management plan usually refers to the storage and the security of the data. And here we are talking about different institutional storages solutions, because data management plan is not only about data you will share in the open way, but it's about data you will need to store. And sometimes sharing and storage, they are two different things. Yes? Because some kind of data cannot be shared in the open way. And it doesn't matter, maybe it's the sensitive data. That's okay. It's sensitive data, sometimes they need to be under restricted control. Yeah. But sometimes you can't share the data in the open way because your data is too big. Yes, too big. And it can't be put to the repository. You need to find the different storage solution. And this is also the place when you make something like selection recommendation or selections writing in your data management plan. Then, for example, half of my data will be published in open repository. Some amount of data, it will be published in the form of underlying data as a part of my publication. But the rest of my data will be archived in the storage system, the cloud system, the personal computer, the pen drives. They are not good answer for the funders at the moment, and it's because it's not reliable. Exactly. Personal computer, even working computer might be stolen. You can, I don't know, split the coffee. Yes. And the pen drives, I think, one of the worst mechanism to store the data. Especially because when you are writing a data management plan, you need to think what you will be writing about backups, for example, about transfer the data. If you have international project, you need to think about if my data can be transferred safely by email. Not necessary by email, or maybe you encrypt your email, maybe then, but maybe FTP, yes, and something like that, maybe the cloud system. But in the European level, you need to think about the cloud system, where the servers of the cloud system, where they are operated. If they are operated behind the European Union, it might be problem with storage the data in the cloud servers, because the European, you should look at me, yes, that's the problem. If, for example, why Google moved their servers from Israel to Germany 3 years ago? Because they wanted to, and they wanted agreement with the German researchers to use their drive cloud system to store the research data. When the servers were, and the Intel, they also operated in the Israel, they couldn't, the research data couldn't be stored there because it was outside of the European Union, and the regulations from the European Union, they were forbade to store the data outside. Yes, that's the reason sometimes we have problems with the United States and so on. We have different agreements with different countries as a European Union. The last agreement was made a few weeks ago with Australia. So, for example, now we have also agreement with Australia, but we, for example, we do not have agreement with China, let's say, yeah? So that's the different things. And then the storage and security requirement, access control, access to the sensitive data needs to be explained in the data storage section. And then we have a few more parts. Sometimes the part number 7 is missing, or it's combined with others. However, we always have in data management plans in different templates, we have strong component on the ethical and legal issues. And it's not only about GDPR, but it's probably one of the most popular concerns, but it's also about anonymization, pseudonymization, and also intellectual property rights, which is one of the first, I think, important things when you can find in your policies at the university. And this is the section, IPR section. You have probably there information about patents and so on. And it's also somehow connected to the data. And then section about data sharing and repositories. And this section is also influenced by the previous first section, because when you when you're talking about your data, which amount of data you produce and what kind of types of data you will be dealing with, then you should clearly identify also the data repository to share your data. And of course, I mentioned the Zenodo, and Zenodo is the biggest repository, I think, in the world at the moment, but it's not only for data. It's the biggest because you can find many types of research output there. And it's great because it's free for researchers, and it's operated by CERN in Switzerland, and they got a grant from the European Commission to operate and to be the main sources for those who doesn't have their own solutions. So if you don't have the disciplinary, if you don't have the institutional repository, it's still a very good place to share your data because it's for free. However, the requirements, I'm not sure because it's changing sometimes, but I think it's 120 gigas for one data set. Sometimes
50.
It's 50.
No.
50, they changed.
50 gigabytes.
50
No,
gigabytes,
no.
so it's very, it's not...
If you want more, you have to write letters, but 50 is...
50. It used to be 120, but probably it's more and more popular. They decreased the limit, so it's 50 giga. But the assigning DOI is for free, so this is very it's great because when you will be operating your own repository, you need to think about cost of DOI because it's not for free. And from Zenodo, you get it from free, and you explained that in the section regarding data sharing and repositories. Just one remarks: GitHub is not the repository. Because the GitHub doesn't give you the persistent identifier. It's one of the best infrastructure in the world. However, from the founder's requirements and from the founder's perspective, you need to assign to your data persistent identifier. An identifier given to the code to the data by GitHub is not persistent. You can find the repository on some kind of aggregates. The most popular index is refridata.org. However, I did the exercise with my PhD student a few months ago. Please find the disciplinary data repository for your data using refridata. And they were from different scientific disciplines. And believe me, it took us more than 1 hour to find one repository, and some of the disciplines, they couldn't find any of the repositories. Because when you go to the refridata, when you go to the disciplinary repositories, you need to, it's not enough to find, this is the repository for arts and imaging or architecture data. You need to go deeper. You need to go to their policy. And sometimes the policy states the repository is in China, the repository is in the United States, the repository is open for readers, but not open for uploaders, and so on and so on. And sometimes the chargers appears, and so it's very good exercise for the students. I recommend for those who will be providing the training how to find the disciplinary repository which can accept my data actually, and which fulfills the requirements from the funders, and it's not so easy. That's probably a lot of people finish with Zenodo. And then is the section about preservation and reuse. Sometimes the information there, they might overlap a little bit with ethical and legal issues, because people they indicate also information about licensing in both sections, but it's completely okay. However, in this section, what also is important is the information about long-term preservation, data curation, and the active preservation. And it's also connected to the data sharing and repositories. Many disciplinary repositories, they are set up during the project. And when the project is finished, sometimes you have 3 years sustainability, sometimes maybe 5 years, but after 5 years, everything is gone, yes? The repository doesn't operate anymore because they don't have funding, yeah? And long-term preservation tells you about that your data will be secure for long time. But it doesn't mean that the data be there in that repository forever. Yes, that's another problem for managing the data repository. Some kind of national repositories, they have this policy that the data there will be stored forever, but they need to find the fundings for operate these repositories. More repositories, and it's also requirements of Core Trust Seal certification. They need to implement something like deleting procedures. I mean, do not delete the data from the repository. It's more about leaving the metadata, the information about the data in the repository, and moving data to some kind of cloud system and so on. But this is also very much time-consuming process, and Europe, even EOSC, also there are lots of discussion about that is happen nowadays. However, in the data management plan, in the section of the preservation and reuse, you need to also focus, and you need to find the repository which assure you the at least long time preservation for the time required by the funder. In the case of Poland, is 10 years from the National Science Center. Then you need to keep the data for 10 years in the repository, and from the manager of the repository point of view, it's a very long time. If I don't have enough storage, I'm not really sure. I mean, I have now because I have funding, but if not, I don't really know. Probably they will need to find the funding. And then the last section is usually according to the rules and responsibilities, some kind of information about data stewards, research team members, and data owner and principal investigator. This is also very important from the administrative point of view, because when the project is finished, sometimes teams, they are disappeared, and if the projects, sometimes they have controls every couple of years, and then it's good to know to have people who who are responsible at least for the information when the data is stored. I would like to start to introduce you a little bit our Polish node, how we start and what we brought to the EOSC, and then Ivan, he will tell you more about focus and the context and the participation of the EOSC and maybe the future plans. So the application to maybe I start from the part and I apologize for the a little bit confusing this morning, because your mandate organization actually is the Ministry of Science and Education. So that's the main mandate organization. If it's good or not, you know. Because that's the problem probably in our case, because we also we thought at the beginning we choose the national funders agency to be the mandate organization, because it's more, let's say, stable with the people. However, it's also its pros and cons. But your member organization in the EOSC association is at the moment Sofia University. So you have one full member organization, and this is a Sofia University. And then you applied for the inter-project to be a national Bulgarian EOSC node. And the project, for the project charter and activities related to become a node, is responsible the NACIT. Okay, so now I hope everything.
Yes, and NACIT is part of the ministry.
And the NACIT is a part of the ministry. And it's more stable than ministry. Don't record that. Okay, so when we started to prepare the EOSC node, it was some kind of application you have to send to the EOSC every year, and this application is quite related to how you create the node. So what you can see that in Poland we have quite a number of the publication repositories, research data repositories, and other research output repositories, but most of them, they are disciplinary repositories on the institute. They are not in the structure of the any networks and so on. However, from the e-infrastructure perspective, we have national data storage network. I'm not sure if you have the similar solution. We have PL grid network for computing, and also we started to build AI factories. What's about Bulgarian?
No, we don't have.
But it was one guy on the first meeting
inside.
from this. Yeah.
It's inside.
Yeah. So I think it might be something. Okay.
Then
Then
they're building something. The brain plus.
It's possible. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
What is it?
It's an extension of the supercomputer in the tech park. So
So
yeah.
where they are working?
Yeah, they
Oh,
have the
that's
funding, they have everything. They're waiting for the GPUs.
because I remember that the guy he
I was
he
going
said
to ask about the supercomputer later. I will just
Inside.
wait.
Inside is the
It's not the inside, it's the discoverer. And the inside are going to consume it. But I don't think that it's specifically related to inside.
the funding is actually given to EOSC?
Actually, I believe it's directly given to the supercomputer, to the Soviet Tech Park.
That
But
makes sense.
I'm not sure.
It came before inside.
Yeah, exactly. It's before
Yes,
sure.
yes.
Yeah. So, by the way, in the time of application, you need to provide all the information what you can have or what you have. Then it's a part about policies, a part about skills and competencies. So in our application, we mention about trainings, research data management trainings. We also provided some mocks, but also we have data stewards network established in Poland. Also we have some kind of working group, we call it EOSC.pl network, and we have more members of the EOSC, but not so many. When we started to apply for the node, we realized that we need to have some kind of the consortium, because we applied as Gdansk Tech and we were very small as the university. So our mandate organization checked all the applications from Poland, not so many of the application there, and they realized that it's University of Warsaw, later Institute of Oceanology, Polish Academy of Science. He's involved with Blue Cloud projects and maritime research. Then Cyfronet, that's the main computing center in Poland. Then Gdansk University of Technology, and then our National Science Center. And we built like a small consortium inside Poland, and we became the pilot national node, and last year at the end, during the symposium, we signed the memorandum of understanding, and we became Polish node. So what we have the governance. We coordinated federation. It's based on the licensal steering with strong community execution. We have our structure, defined roles and responsibilities. We have steering group, and the very important, we meet regularly every week online. And we are part of different task forces for EOSC and different working groups for EOSC nodes. For example, I'm chairing one of the group for training and competencies, which I could invite all the nodes candidates and nodes and existing nodes. So after your application, we are able to invite someone of you. The very in the center of the EOSC is they are use cases. The nodes, they are working on the use cases. That's the reason Stina mentioned that you, as a community, as a EOSC node, you will need to develop some kind of use cases or participate in the existing use cases. And also at the moment we are working on discovery platform, federated AAI, and fair by design working space for the researchers. So this is mainly our resources as a node at the moment. So we have digital infrastructures and repositories. We have computing storage. We have, but also we are working on we have icon storage and computing. We have AI tool tools, and we have also, for example, digital tissue and cell atlas of the virtual microscope. So we try to organize our resources in one aggregate. And to show you how it looks like at the moment, because our platform called, we call it one data, where we combine data and analytical tools. I show you the quick video we presented in the symposium. I hope it will be working, and I'm not sure if you can see, can you see the subtitles? Data sets from different repositories and how to put a workflow. Okay, so this it was the one scientific use case. We worked on that use case from the moment we applied for a node, and then we got a 1 year to develop something. And it was like one big task for our node. I'm not sure what will be the next procedures for next candidate nodes, but beyond the main case you need to decide on something, you can also be involved in let's say smaller scientific use cases. So, for example, we as Polish node, we are also part of the health data science use case. However, we only get them data from our virtual microscope. That's the easiest way to, how you can be involved in some kind of use cases. Also, I'm personally involved in the use case about open science competence centers. We are thinking about trainings. We are involving in the EOSC Academy, for example, because we are part of the group. So you need to find 2-3 possibility areas to be involved, and the involvement might be very, it might be data, it might be competencies, it might be some kind of solutions. And at the moment, our new scientific use cases. By the way, all the scientific use cases will be showed during the symposium. Our new scientific, it's not maybe even scientific because it's more technical, is this machine actionable data management plan. So we are applied together with Cyfronet, and our main PI investigator is from Austria Technical University. They are responsible for the solution for machine actionable data management plan. They call it DMP. And during the Gravity project, we applied for a scientific inter-project grant, and now we are building the DMP-PL. So we are building the solution for machine actionable data management plan based on the template for the National Science Center. I hope we will finish because we have time only until October, and then maybe next time I will be able to show you this. And DMP, for example, is open for everybody, still for free at the moment. I don't know what's the future, but it might be another potential use cases for you if you would like to work on the data management plan activities.